college can be a great place.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to be sure that a person has a total sense of himself and the environment
Yeah.
and people, and I think relationships are so important. In any instance, for instance, I still have relationships with people that when I went to UNLV, for
Oh, wow.
instance, back in 1980,
Oh, what did you study?
I studied communications.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Yes.
Communication is definitely a powerful skill.
Oh, yes.
Awesome.
Because when I was in Hawaii, I went to the University of Hawaii, and I was in Teachers College.
Okay.
And then when there were changes in my life, and I moved here, and my husband, Dr. Clifford Lee, and by the way, today is his birthday,
Oh wow.
but he passed away
Oh.
18 years ago. But
Happy birthday and love and memory. That's amazing.
yeah, nice, beautiful memories. And he said, "What would you like to do?" And I said, "You know what? I want to go back to college."
Yeah.
And that was the best thing I ever did. And I had so much fun. And then joining the UNLV Rebel Yell,
Yeah. Mhm.
the newspaper.
Oh, you were in the newspaper? Oh,
Yes.
that's great.
And interviewed people.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I was an older student.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I love school. I love learning, and I'm still learning to this day.
That's amazing. Yeah, learning is an ongoing process.
Yes.
One of my core values is always be learning.
Yes.
ABL. If you continue learning, you'll be able to do anything.
Right.
Yeah. So, Rozita, I'm so grateful you could join us in the studio for this interview. Folks, if you're just tuning in, my name is Elias Spalon, and so honored to have a special guest with us, Rozita Lee, who has a lifetime of dedication and community service. I think we're going to be able to learn so much, be inspired so much by your work. I just want to, give your accolades a little bit.
Thank you.
I met you when I was just a teenager, and you and the entire OCA crew and all of the folks from the AAPI community really brought me in and mentored me, and I have so much love for you folks. And you've done so much for the AAPI community. You've held multiple national presidency roles, global advocacy roles.
Yes.
You were an advisor to the White House under the
Yes.
Obama administration.
Correct.
That's incredible.
It is incredible. And when I think about it, and just lately because I just live and I do what I do, but lately in the past month, I've had to reflect because people are asking me to, how did I get where? And I never think about that because I'm just doing it. But when you think about the fact, when I moved here, I went to UNLV, and after UNLV, I was able to work with Dr. Bob William Bailey.
Okay.
And with Nevada Economic Development Company.
Yep.
And what we did is we had annual conferences for the minorities, small businesses. And we had people from all over the country come. And SBA and MBDA helped us to do this conference. And we had people from Washington, D.C. So I was working with him. And then, and the reason I'm telling you this is because I realize everything that has happened in my life is because of God. It wasn't anything that I planned, but he had a plan.
Yeah.
Because while I was working for Dr. Bob Bailey, I got a call from the newly elected governor of the state of Nevada, and that was Governor Bob Miller.
Okay.
And he called me and he asked me if I would please come to and be his special assistant in the Las Vegas office.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to do because I was enjoying the work that I was doing with Dr. Bob. But as it turned out, everybody said, okay, Dr. Bob was very gracious. And so I worked for the governor. And I was the first Asian woman in the history of Nevada to work in the governor's office.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. Yeah. And then after that, I had my own business.
Right.
And I was on the Las Vegas trip because I'm from Hawaii.
What kind of business was that?
It was a Polynesian cultural show.
Okay.
So I was on this trip for 19 years doing our Polynesian show, and I was telling the history of the islands.
That's awesome.
And after that, that was a tremendous experience because met many people from all over the world and had to learn business,
Yeah.
had to apply what I was teaching and helping people with. And then after that, then I got a call from the White House.
Okay.
Uh,
That's incredible. And
yes, it
that's what
is.
led you to your role as the AAPI advisor under the
Right.
Obama administration.
Yes.
Going back real briefly to the work you're doing on the Strip with the Polynesian show, I think that's really fascinating because it brings in a couple of different elements of your own career. One is you got to share your culture with
Yes.
Vegas and with the world,
Yes.
which is so important because it helps break down barriers, helps create
Correct.
bridges, and Las Vegas is so special. I mean, I don't know how many folks were coming back then, but today it's 40 million folks. And if we can give people from around the world exposure to different cultures, to
Mhm.
different peoples, to different ideologies, they can go share that in their communities. And we can, tourism, I really believe, is a tool for peace building.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we were doing as dancers and singers and producers of the show. Um, we had people from all over the world that came. And when they returned, they made it a point and they told me
Yeah,
to come and see the show because
that's awesome.
to learn the different cultures. I was born in Hawaii, so I learned the cultures of Hawaii, the Hawaiians, Samoans, Tongans, the people that are from the Cook Islands,
Yep.
because we had dances from all of those.
And that brings to the other great point of doing that work is that you were able to house or create work opportunities, create community for other
Yes,
folks that were coming to Vegas from the islands. That's
right,
amazing,
right.
and that probably also gave you a better perspective into the daily lives of folks that had an AAPI background, and that's probably what made the White House even more impressed to enlist your help.
I guess so because where I was born in Lahaina, um, we lived with people of all cultures.
Mhm.
Although, what the plantation owners did is they segregated us.
Oh, really?
Yes, and
By culture.
by cultures and by ethnic.
Mm,
In others, we had a Filipino camp,
okay.
we had a Japanese camp, we had a Portuguese camp. We were segregated,
Yeah.
and I thought to myself in later years,
Hmm.
recent years, I said, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. There was segregation even then, and I lived it.
Yeah.
Also, um, the pay for for my father, $1 a day, $1 a day. Now that's servitude. That's
Absolutely.
slave labor.
Yeah.
And I'm so
Wow.
grateful that my father spoke English well, so
Hmm.
he was elevated
Okay.
to a higher position
Yeah.
and became the camp boss and so forth and so on. But when I think about how they treated us from other countries, because
Right.
they came and invited people
Yeah.
to come and live here and work the fields. My uncles worked the cane fields, chopping cane, burning cane, and doing all of that. $1 a day.
Yeah. That's so terrible.
Isn't that terrible?
Absolutely.
And
It
those
is.
companies were actually owned by missionary families.
Yeah. It is.
I, I, I I fight for justice,
Absolutely.
So when I realized what was happening
Yeah.
now, I
Hmm.
didn't then because I was a child.
Right. We had somebody from the Cesar Chavez Foundation visit us not too
Ah,
long ago, and I got to up on my history of the great work he did, and some of the controversial opinions he also had about migrant workers and
right.
also fighting for. But it was because of companies taking advantage of migrant workers, or
Exactly.
I in my book I termed folks new Americans if they came to America to live our values and be Americans. They're new Americans. They're not, I think the country, and this isn't just an American thing, this is a global thing, has an issue with treating foreigners differently as if they're not citizens.
Right.
And, you know,
And yet we are.
yeah, we're all citizens of
Yes,
the
we are.
world. We all, human rights aren't
Hmm.
given to us. I don't believe human rights are given to us by government. I believe human rights are given to us by God.
Exactly.
And so, you know, did the Cesar Chavez movement do anything back in Hawaii? Did you notice anything, or
Not at that time,
Yeah.
but we did have someone here, Itliong, who worked alongside with
Okay.
Cesar Chavez. And so, we're always fighting for that
Yeah.
leadership thing. Now, what Cesar Chavez was able to do is he was able to get more of the publicity during his time,
Yeah.
so that our Mr. Itliong didn't have that much, but he worked side by side. They united the workers.
Yeah.
That was a very important phase, and that was in California.
Yeah.
When all that happened, and again we had to fight for justice.
Yeah.
Again, we had to fight for a place in the sun
Mm-hmm.
for us. Cesar Chavez with the Mexican group, and we with the Filipinos.
Yeah.
The Filipinos were, when I think about it, the Filipinos with the African Americans, with the Mexicans, all had to fight for their right
Absolutely.
to be citizens.
Yeah. Yeah.
For their and I'm still on that. I've never stopped wanting to see justice served.
Yeah.
Justice served.
What do you think inspired that that call to action within you to pursue justice?
My family, my father being who he was, always wanting to see everything that is right. He was a healer, and he was also the camp boss, so to speak.
Okay.
And so people would come to our house for help.
Yeah.
And when I was part of that, and I witnessed my parents helping, my sisters helping others.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a natural thing.
Yeah.
And that was a thing that they instilled in me.
That's amazing.
My dad said, if you see anything happening that you feel is not right, like somebody's bullying your classmate, do something about it.
Yeah.
Speak up.
Yeah.
Call your teacher.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I have always advocated, I think you might remember, is speak up.
Absolutely.
When you see something, speak up. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the Bible talks about speaking up for the defenseless or for the
Yes.
voiceless.
Yes.
And in some of my own personal work, like personal development work, it was maybe 7 years ago when I was working with a life coach, and the result out of that was I found one of my drivers is to focus on empowering others,
Yes.
but also stand up against those that disempower others.
Yes.
And it's just something that I don't feel so deep to
Right.
fight for justice. And you've continued to do that. It's not something that you've stopped doing. I mean, you talked about under the Biden administration passing the Anti-Hate Act
Correct.
for the AAPI community. Can you talk about a little bit about why that's important for folks who might not be as familiar with the issue?
Well, because of the coronavirus, for
Yeah.
instance, when that came, and the leader of our country at that time were saying slanderous words. Oh, it was because of the Chinese. Oh, it went and named it kung fu, and did all of these
Yeah.
derogatory statements. So when some people heard that, and who were not educated enough to understand, they said, "Oh, then that person is an enemy in their
Right.
minds." Because when the chief says something, you think, then I got to do something about it. Or it instills something within them when they see an Asian,
Mhm.
which happened, and they beat up people.
Yeah,
They
that's so
beat up
terrible.
not only the men, but women.
Yeah, that's
And-
disgusting behavior.
And one of our Filipino is in New York. She was beaten up so badly that she ultimately died.
Oh, man.
And then we had a case here in Las Vegas, where the Filipinos got together and supported the person that was beaten up by his neighbor, and
Wow.
the neighbor called him names, and also I've heard of so many things. Just recently, somebody said to a friend of mine, "Why don't you go back to where you came from?"
Wow.
Which is the Philippines.
Mhm.
And it's happening today.
Yeah.
To this, and that's why my priority now is civility.
Yeah.
And that's what I work with.
So now you are taking the stage on educating folks on how to have more civil conversations.
That's right.
Can you share a little bit about the work that you're doing and the radio show or the TV show that you're hosting?
Yes, so I'm excited about that. I'm more excited because I'm working with a world civility leader who is His Royal Highness, Dr. Clyde Rivers. He is a king from Ghana. He is for business development. And he has been doing this work for many, many years.
Okay.
And one of the things that we work on here is having workshops with the different levels of government,
Mhm.
with the different companies that we have, corporations, but we start with the family.
Yeah.
Everything starts with you and others, and we base it on James, the Bible, James chapter 2, verse 9, 8 and 9. And so the work that we do is getting so big that we realized when somebody called and said, "You are the voice of civility," oh, that's a good name to have for a
Yeah.
program. And so that's what we're going to be doing, and we'll be launching
Yeah.
in the next 2 months.
Yeah. Civility is such an important, piece to keeping peace alive. And, it's so worrisome in some parts of the world, including our own country, when it feels like civility gets thrown out the window.
Mhm.
And so I really admire that you're doing that type of work. I was sharing, before we get started on the show that, some of the, being involved in politics, happy to debate anybody on politics on most issues. But where it becomes very deeply sensitive to me are two issues. And one is, genocide or war or the
Yes.
aggressors of war specifically,
Yes.
which we're seeing that around the world right now. And it's such a shame.
It
And we
is.
do need to put it to a stop, or it's coming to everyone's backyards. And it's the opposite of love. They're literally committing murder at
Right.
such a massive scale. So that's a tough topic for me to debate on because I'd get emotional. And then
Uh-huh.
the other one is the deportation of undocumented immigrants in this country.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
11 million dreamers in America. 80% of them have been here for more than 10 years. It amounts to about 1 out of 5 households in America. I'm one of those dreamers. And
Uh-huh.
so, I believe that, most of the dreamers, folks that are going to college, that are doing community work, that are working hard to take care of their families, deserve a path to citizenship.
Correct.
But there's a lack of a path to citizenship, and we're all at risk of being deported. And so to hear, some of the slander that comes from the other side about immigrants is what led me to writing this book, to try to
Oh,
share a
I
different
love
perspective
it. Yes.
and to highlight the great stories that immigrants are
Butterfly.
having. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And butterflies, they migrate
Yes, they do.
all around North and South America, and so that's why I felt that, they were a great representation. And most folks can get behind a butterfly. It's an easier way to start the
Right.
conversation.
Yes.
Um, but I think the key to all of this is that it takes conversation
It
to bring
does.
people to the table, to recognize one another. Going back to the AAPI hate issue, it was because folks just heard Donald Trump talk about Chinese people, maybe never met a Chinese person in
Right.
their life.
Yeah.
Some of the folks that I talked to who didn't know I was a dreamer, that changed their perspective on,
Yes.
who an undocumented person is. And it's
Mhm.
because they're hearing all of this like vitriol, and that's
Yes.
not the truth.
That's right. And that's exactly why with civility, it's communication health.
Yeah.
It's the ability to come and sit at the table. We don't have to agree with your ideas, but because there is some issue,
Yeah.
rather than argue about it, sit down and have an open dialogue.
Hmm.
And when you can listen to the other person and have them listen to you, I think that's so important because that gives you time to look, to hear, and then to understand.
Yeah.
And then you can shake hands
Hmm.
and part. The thing about communication health is that we need to be able to do this open dialogue, understand, because your history is different from my history.
Hmm.
What you hear is different from what you speak. So what we do in civility is we educate people about these things so that even the officials, because they have problems,
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
problems. So when we educate them and they say, "Oh, I didn't realize that.
Hmm.
I didn't realize that." When we talk to parents, for instance, they have some issues with their children, or their children have issues
Right.
with their parents. So when they sit down and understand, so different. And then they act. We've seen families change from this hostility, this vibration
Oh,
in the
good.
house,
Yeah,
change softness and understanding and love. And that's what we advocate, love. Love yourself, love one another. And,
absolutely.
of course, love God because
Mhm.
He is the creator of us all. So that's what I love doing. And I'm continuing to do that for the rest of the time that I have here on earth.
That's amazing. And you're also, so you're doing that through your show, but you're also doing that through your company as well as a
Yes.
consultant. So that's incredible. What advice you've held several roles as president of various groups, right? You're part of NAFA, National
Yeah,
Association of
National
National Amer-
Federation
okay,
of Filipino American Associations,
National
Federation
Federation.
of Filipino American Associations, and I'm
Awesome.
also on the National Federation of Chambers, Filipino Chambers of Commerce.
That's great.
Yes, because business makes the world go round.
Absolutely.
Trade, etc.
Yeah.
And we help people with small businesses.
Yep.
And I belong to the Filipino American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Nevada.
That's amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. I was
Uh-huh.
on and off meeting with Walbert from Astoria.
Walbert. Oh, I just love Walbert. He has so many bright ideas.
Yeah.
And our president Joel Enriquez and his wonderful, talented wife is a designer. They have a company called Luna Designs, but they're actually designing our chamber in this city of Las Vegas, and it's just amazing the ideas that come out of people, ideas that come out of your brain, ideas that come out of the brain. And I keep saying this of Dr. Clyde Rivers.
Mhm.
It's just like it's churning and churning, and ideas that we can then manifest,
Absolutely.
make them real.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do with all of our people that we work with,
Yeah.
the people that you work around you, is listen to what their ideas are, and if they can be implemented, do it.
Yeah.
But when you do this with love, it's so different from doing it with the love of money.
Absolutely.
So different. If you
Yeah.
just do it with love for humanity,
Mhm.
it's amazing what happens.
I think the fuel of love for humanity or
Mhm.
driven by purpose goes so
Yeah.
much further than for money.
Right.
And we're backstage here. We have the whole library. We installed this recently to encourage this to be a safe space for veterans, to be the space where entrepreneurs can learn, to
Yes.
encourage youth to read. And one of the books that I have several of our youth reading is the New Millionaire's Playbook by Gordy Ball.
Oh.
And he talks about it in his book about being you grew up in a lifestyle that valued money over everything else.
Right.
And after he felt like he had success in his business, he still didn't have success in his relationships, in his family, and felt lost. And I think that's a common story among people who only chase business for money.
Right.
Is that whether you succeed or fail, at the end of that journey, there's not the love isn't waiting on the at the end of that journey. And so finding a way where you can fulfill your purpose, share love with the world, and also build a business at the same time.
Mhm.
I think that's so powerful. It sounds like Joel and the folks that design are doing that.
Uh-huh.
If you
Where when I was mentoring, um, you need to know yourself first.
yeah.
And that's an edict from the Bible. Know yourself, love yourself.
Mhm.
Because if you can't love yourself, how can you love others?
Yeah.
So we start with that. And we start with the background from which they were born. And, I have found out that many people say, I want to be able to do this. And then they change their mind. I want to be able to do this.
Mm.
And then they change their mind. And it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because your mind is still going and young. But then when you hone in and really realize what it is, like some people have a passion for teaching or
Mhm.
helping another person. Some people have a passion, for sculpting,
Yeah.
and painting. but have not really had an opportunity to do that. So if they can do the passion, with passion, what they love to do, they're so much happier.
Yeah.
And it doesn't become like if you're working in a company and you like to create slogans and things like that, that's what you should be doing
Yeah.
because you have a passion for it. And so we talk communication, communication, communication until they realize, oh, yeah, that's what it is. What's my purpose? What did God want me to do? You know, and then they start to think. It's a slow process in many instances. And when they find it, life is so much easier.
Yeah.
So much
Absolutely.
easier.
I think, not just for the adult professional who's looking how to make a mark on their world, but even for students, when you can find what a student is passionate about learning,
Right.
then it's almost like the learning can happen on its own. You don't need as much structured guidance if you untap this passion.
Right. Yeah. I like that.
And so you're definitely a testament of a lifetime of passion, and you found your
Yes.
passion early on, which is
Mhm.
so amazing to witness. Someone else I got to sit down in a small setting with like this was Raja Mori, who's
Oh yes, Raja. He's the chair for the Asian Chamber,
yep.
which we started.
Oh,
I
that's
was-
amazing.
Ah,
Back
yeah.
in the 80s or 70s, so it's one of the
It was
longest,
in the 70s.
one of the
yeah.
oldest chambers in
Right.
town.
I was the first, the chairwoman of the board
Oh wow,
of
that's
that
amazing.
chamber.
That's awesome.
And when I think about the firsts that
Yeah.
I've done, it's amazing. I mean, only now I'm reflecting, and oh yeah, that's right, I did that. Oh yeah, I did this and I did that.
Raja, I think he told me that the first event that y'all did through the AAG was something at Bally's or something like that. But you guys had like 400 or 500 attendees
Oh
for your
yes,
first annual gala. That's amazing.
Right. It has grown.
Yeah.
It has grown. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So Raja has also founded the Arab American Chamber of
Yes.
Commerce, and I sit on the board for that as their
Oh,
secretary.
you do.
And so, I think the goal there is, again, you build bridges. I think going back to how you shared you grew up in Lahaina, that the camps were segregated.
Yes.
It sounds like that was done with an intentionality, right? If you can create small issues between the Filipinos and the Chinese and the Japanese and have them focus on fighting each other versus fighting their missionary bosses over justice, then you'll always be in that chaotic zone.
Right.
And so I think it's really important that for all of our groups that are organizing, we have the Black Chamber and the Urban Chamber and the Latino Chamber and the Arab Chamber and the Asian American folks, that we all communicate with one another, that we focus on nurturing our communities, we get our communities out there, and then we focus on building bridges between the communities because we get to support each other that way.
Right.
We get to break down the unknown barriers that lead to like the hate and the disgruntledness.
Exactly. I had I got a call from Washington secretary at that time, and it was great. We had a great discussion. I would like to do that again. Maybe you can help me.
Yeah, I would
and
be honored.
Let's get our chamber people together.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you on that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think there's a lot that we can do to support minority businesses. I mean, there has been a lot of funding that has come as a result of ARPA that's probably running out. And there's more resources constantly coming in from the SBA. And we can just, get these in the hands of folks. I mean, that's really important.
Yes.
But not just about the government resources. Something that I found like as a lesson of the work we do here in this incubator is when we can add more, when folks are like culturally aligned in the sense that they want to lead with love, they want to support each other, they have some idea of what purpose or passion might be. They come into the space, and we get more of those people coming into the space, and we make the space denser with like-minded or just kind folks that are trying to do business together. What I've witnessed happen and continues to happen, the denser we get, is the serendipitous opportunities that happen between the group. And then people start doing business with each other, supporting each other, and people will grow together. And that's what I think is so powerful about bringing all of the groups together and forming those relationships.
Yes. I think that's important. I think collaborations are great.
Yeah.
Working, because we need to understand each other's culture
Yeah.
as well. Um, Dr. Rivers wrote a book, When Histories Collide, and that's pretty much our handbook for what we do with civility, because it is true when you meet people in social events,
Yeah.
you're of that ethnic, background, and I'm from another. It's interesting to find out,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have found out through food how wonderful it is
Yeah.
to get to know each other better,
Yeah.
because you bring food and, oh, that's similar to what we do. Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Oh, that tastes so good.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I think, there's some folks who say like we shouldn't be focusing on culture, or there's some folks who say like we should be blind to race. Have you heard of that? Or especially folks on the on the more conservative side say, oh well, racism shouldn't exist. We should just be blind to racism. Like, and what's your reaction to
When you
that?
say the conservatives say that you should be blind to race when they are the very ones who bring up race.
Mm.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
because, and that's one thing. I had a discussion just recently about that. The African Americans, I have so many wonderful friends, that they were the ones that built our country.
Yeah. Literally built the White House.
Really,
Literally.
literally built our country. And yet, you know what? I think I'm going to have to fight for their causes as well,
Yeah.
because it's just not fair. When you put over the phone, you have an interview, and then you go and meet the person, and then they see the color.
Mm-hmm.
Their attitude of the one who's hiring changes.
Yeah, that's terrible.
That is not right.
No.
That is not right. And we need to change the mindset of the human beings,
Yeah.
Regarding that. And it's true. We were born in different countries. We were born with the color of our skin. So don't say that, that you can't think about it that way and then be prejudiced one with the other.
Yeah.
But we are taught prejudice. We are taught prejudice by our families and in
Right.
schools
Yeah.
and by society.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we're born with
No,
prejudice.
we're not. We're not born with that.
I think there's power for sure in celebrating, everyone's unique cultural background, and
Yes.
no matter where they're from, and kind of going back to what you talked about, the interviews and over the phone, and then receiving a different reaction in person.
Yeah.
It's those biases, those subconscious biases that folks have, and that's why celebrating cultures is so important. Because if you've never met a Chinese person, go meet a Chinese person,
Mhm.
and go to a Chinese restaurant or go to a Chinese cultural event, and
Yes.
meet folks and understand the culture, or celebrate the culture, find
Right.
joy in the humanity of it. And
Yes.
I was actually just thinking about this the other day. I have Ukrainian friends, but I don't have any Russian friends. Not really connected to many.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought, I was kind of disappointed in myself over that, because I felt so when Russia invaded Ukraine more than 2 years ago.
Yes.
I just remember feeling a sense of doom over the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to not be able to have that conversation with folks, I think is painful. I think it's so important to be able to have conversations with people, and so what advice do you have for going across the line on cultures, or on ideologies, or people that aren't in your circle, and starting to build those bridges?
Well, what is happening, for instance, here, and it has been happening, is we have a lot of festivals
Yeah.
that are put on by different ethnic groups.
Yeah.
I think we need to attend those festivals, those functions that come up, but the thing is, first of all, you have to have that desire
Yeah.
of wanting to cross over the bridge, so
Mhm.
to speak. And I think when we can do these events in such a way that entices people to come and learn about us,
Mhm.
because we
Yeah.
love you
Yeah.
and we want you to know more about us. When we have that kind of attitude, I think that will work. And also small group discussions It starts in the schools.
Yeah.
They're training from kindergarten about sex. From
Right.
kindergarten.
Yeah, that's
I don't understand.
mhm.
Well, anyway, that's another topic for another day because that's going to take forever. But I don't understand our school system.
Mhm.
I don't understand why Nevada is down at the bottom as far as education. For as long as I've been here more than 45 years.
Yeah.
Why is it still there?
Yeah.
So we have to hold our officials accountable
Yeah.
for what is happening, has happened.
Yeah.
Can we make that change?
Yeah.
Um, you know, a lot of the board, of trustees for the school district, and I've talked with them as well. But we need to have more people involved.
Yeah.
Parents have to be involved.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I'm grateful that teachers recently in the state were able to get a raise, right? So,
Mhm.
I mean, that's good that, teachers are able to get support in that sense. But you're right. I mean, Vegas and Southern Nevada is number one at so many bad things, and that's not okay.
It's not okay.
And we have so many amazing resources to our disposal, right? We don't even pay a state tax because tourists come and pay the taxes for us. And so there are some really big disconnects. I'm so lucky that I was able to experience so many different school systems. So I
Mhm.
was, I grew up in public school, private school, I was homeschooled, I went to an online school, and I went to a Christian school.
Uh-huh.
And I was able to finish high school really early, right? So finished my online high school when I was like 14. It was insane. And then
Wow.
my siblings, all my younger siblings followed in that path.
Uh-huh.
So my brother at like 15, one of my sisters at 16, my other sister at 14, and then my
Wow.
sibling, the youngest twins at 15. And we all went to college, UNLV, really early. And what that perspective gave me is that the school system is very much built on like a factory model, that we have to go from one grade to the next grade. This is what you're going to learn, when education is so much more fluid.
Yes.
And I had a passion for learning. I discovered I was into science and sometimes into math and to tinkering and to policy and history. And so I would just do that for fun
Yeah.
because I found what I was interested in studying. And lots of people are going to say they're not interested in studying, but if they can find something that they're passionate about and go
Yes.
study that thing, it's going to make the muscle of your brain easier to study and learn. So the
Uh-huh.
things you're not as passionate to learn, you
Right.
strengthen your muscle.
Yes.
So I think the entire school system can be totally
Oh,
disrupted.
Lord,
But
we need some changes.
how we're going to do that for Clark County, I'm not sure. It's definitely
Uh-huh.
a big conversation. And we're also talking about universities, right?
Yes, yes,
So you went to University of Hawaii,
yes.
and then you left that to come to Vegas.
Well, yes, I got married, had my children, worked, and then when uh, I left divorced my husband, and I was a single mom for 14 years
Okay.
before I got married again.
All
And
in Hawaii?
I got married here,
Okay.
but yes, my first part of my life was in Hawaii,
Okay.
and Hawaii is always in the heart.
Yeah, of
So
course.
that's why, and I'm going to be going again in October. I'll be going home to visit. I went to visit during that catastrophe that they had in my hometown of Lahaina, Maui, that was burned
Yeah.
completely. Oh, it was horrible. So I went there with Joanne Fields from San Diego, one of my mentees, and we were able to bring boxes and boxes of supplies
That's
for the
fantastic.
families. Yes, and we were thankful for for the um, the people that donated so much. Grateful, and the group that helped me was FASI, the group here in Las Vegas. It's amazing how the hearts of people open up
Hmm.
when there is tragedy. But what is amazing is what is not being done by the people that need to do it, the officials, the government that needs to help them.
Yeah.
We just celebrated the first anniversary, and
Right.
there's still chaos in
Yeah.
Lahaina.
I think government is so interesting because folks are attracted to power. And so I think there's, more often than not, the folks that get attracted to government are actually attracted to it for maybe selfish reasons, right?
Yes.
For
Yes.
the fact that they get to call themselves an assemblyman or a politician or have
Yes.
that position and
Oh.
title, make the money, have the connections. One of the folks who I really look up to as a local elected is Commissioner Willie McCurdy.
Yes, I
Um,
like him.
I met him back in college
Uh-huh.
and heard his story. He was also a non-traditional student going back to college after having a son,
Uh-huh.
and I think the reason why I respect him so much is because he does community work with or without the political position. And then he leverages his political position to do even more community work. And so it's just unfortunate that most people attracted to government are not like that. They're attracted to it because they get to have a position of power and they get to leverage it for
Right.
making money or some kind of selfish
Yes.
reason.
That's human nature, I think, in
Yeah.
some instances. And I understand about wanting to make money to, to take care of yourself and your family. That's a given.
Yeah.
But when it becomes such a force behind you
Hmm.
that nothing else matters, then you forget why you were elected.
Right.
And I'm seeing this
Yeah.
through the years I've observed.
Oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
think I was reading up in some of the history of the local legislators, and
Yeah.
I'm forgetting who it is and don't want to miscall out anyone, but there was
Yeah,
a
we
state.
don't want to do this on
Yeah,
on your show.
yeah. But it's unfortunate that there's this revolving door.
Yeah.
Right. You leave your Senate seat and you immediately get picked up for the biggest lobbying firm.
Right.
And it questions like what was the purpose there? Because I was talking to my youngest brother about this. His name is Noor. He just finished a White House internship and
Good for
did a
him.
congressional internship. He works at UNLV as a student advisor, and we were both talking about what he wants to do in the future. And a lot of people were telling him, "Oh, go be a lobbyist or go work for an elected or something like that." And he's telling me why he didn't want to do that. And the reason why is because as a lobbyist, you get paid to work on issues that you might not be passionate about,
Right.
or might be counter to your own principles.
Right.
And so I'd rather not take the money and just work on the issues that matter the most
Yes.
to him, which I think is important. And I feel like you resonate with that. I mean, have you ever had to turn down money because it went against your core values?
Right. Exactly. And all of the work that I've been doing with the community has been on a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
I've never been paid as such for that. And I think now, when I think back, because I've been asked to reflect, and I'm going, yeah, I could have made a lot of money doing this. I could have made a lot of money doing that. But I never thought about that because that was not in my DNA.
Yeah.
My DNA was, if I can help you, I will. Now, with my, consulting, that's a completely different, and I say different because I don't have that many clients. Because what happens when they call me for help,
Yeah.
I just give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And, people say, well, why do you have your consultancy? I said, well, I guess I needed to have something, under my name. So, but that even now, I give away my connections. I connect people. They have a problem. I know who it is that can help. I connect them, and that's been my whole life.
Do you do that from a spirit of abundance? Do you think about it from that way, or?
The Lord, everything
Mhm.
is ours.
Yeah.
That's what the Lord says. Everything is ours. So I have no need as such. If the abundance comes, it's because He wants me to have it.
Yeah.
So I don't worry or think about it. I'm not wealthy or anything like that. I live on my Social Security, and that is fine. But sometimes I am blessed, with at the time that I need.
Yeah.
So God always provides.
Yeah.
He always provides.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful.
That's amazing. What I've got a cliche question for you.
Okay, cliche, come along.
Yeah, we work with a lot of 20-somethings here. What advice would you have for yourself, for your 20-year-old or 20-something-year-old self?
Oh, Good question. Well, I I would say that there were some things that I did as a young woman, which I would say think about those things now because the relationships are very important,
Mm,
and so be wiser in your relationships with people. Also, be wiser with your tongue
okay.
because the tongue can kill or give life.
Yeah.
And so that would be my advice to me
Okay.
in that using my tongue in in a way that would be seen more by the world. In other
Mm,
words, don't just keep it to yourself.
okay.
Speak it, write it, say it,
Yeah.
you know.
The tongue is really as powerful as the
Oh,
sword.
yes.
I consider our
Yes.
ears our shield. So,
Uh-huh.
you know, it's really good to at least you know, the world has changed a lot
Oh,
in the times that you've grown.
oh my God.
What
I've been through wars.
right. Yeah, World War II.
The
Mm,
island.
wow.
We were on the island of Maui,
Mhm.
but we were still involved because of the planes coming in and the bombs. And it was frightening,
Of course.
but you know, as a 7 that I worked very hard, World War II veterans. And I'll tell you why I had to work hard. Is because America did not really accept that Filipinos helped to win the war.
Yeah.
And we were veterans because President Franklin Delano Roosevelt drafted them,
Hmm.
you know, into the war and helping. And I say, our Filipinos fought side by side with the Americans, catching the same bullets, dying,
Yeah.
and they need to be the benefits that were promised them as
Absolutely.
veterans were taken away. And so we're always having to fight for them, having to go before Congress and say they need medical help. They need help for this. Why? Why? So today I'm still working on that. I walk the halls of Congress, knocking on doors. I had to educate young congressmen and senators who were not born.
Wow.
And they said, some of them, I wanted to punch them in the chest
Oh yeah.
because they didn't know that,
Hmm.
who we are, who Filipinos are,
Right.
you know. I had to educate them.
Hmm.
We fought so that America could be free.
Yeah. It's so
Oh,
great that you are in the position you are in to be able to educate and build those bridges. But it's also so sad and disheartening to see the injustice come out of apathy or come out of
yes,
just a lack of understanding where we all come from.
right. One of our champions and me is our dear, dear, dear friend, Senator Harry Reid.
Hmm.
He was wonderful in helping the Filipino World War II veterans. And I remember when, because I used to go to the embassy, Philippine embassy, for meetings, and the ambassador asked if he could go with me because I had a meeting planned with Senator. If he could go with me to meet the senator because he'd been trying so hard for many months to get to meet him. And so I called the senator's office. I said, "Is it okay if I bring the ambassador?" Of course, of course.
Yeah.
So we talked about the World War II issues,
Hmm.
for the veterans. That's so important. And then when Senator Reid and I met with the president of the Philippines, when the president of the Philippines gave an award for the work that he had done, I was the only person that went with him,
Oh wow.
and that was quite an honor.
Yeah.
And we talked again about the Filipino World War II veterans. And it's so important for the world to know. Is it in the textbook? Especially here in America, our students need to know the history.
Yeah.
Our students need to know the history of the Japanese American. The students need to know the AAPI history,
Yeah.
and so we need to make sure that we have it in our history books. And we have a group that worked on that, and just recently in California, and I'm trying to get it done here too, in Nevada, to include that as part of the curriculum.
That's great. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think, I think it was President Truman who said, if we don't know our history, we're doomed to repeat it.
Right.
Or
Yes.
is it
No,
President
no.
Eisenhower?
Yeah, it was somebody else that said that, but
Yeah.
that's so true.
Mhm.
You have to know a little bit of it, but you cannot dwell
Yeah.
in the past.
No, but it's important to know the red flags, right? I
Yes.
mean, I think the last administration really put out a ton of red flags for leading us to a world where we could have internment camps and folks. I talk to other folks that are my age or younger than me who don't even understand what the Holocaust meant in terms of
Mm.
the lives it's actually
Oh,
touched, or
yes.
what the Japanese internment camps in America, what that meant.
I
And
know.
I try to tie that to going back to the undocumented issue and how some folks are calling for mass deportations and rounding people up and putting them in jail, and it's
I
like
know.
these are this is what leads us to genocide. Like these are not okay,
Right.
and
Yes.
it's based off of a fear of not knowing people or not understanding where they're coming from. And so I think that education is so important,
Oh, definite.
so we're not
Definite.
doomed to repeat it.
Let me ask you a question
Yeah.
about just recently, President Biden had signed a bill about the DACA. Now I understand it's being stalled.
So there was a board like an immigration comprehensive reform package. It
Hmm.
was, I think, called it was called the American Citizens Act. I'm not sure, but the purpose of that was to strengthen the border, reinforce the border, and also create a pathway to citizenship for dreamers. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily like the Dream Act; is a little bit more watered down and
Hmm.
more emphasis on border control. But that got, that actually was a bipartisan bill that Republicans and Democrats came together to build. And then Donald Trump came out publicly in his own press conference just to encourage Republicans to shoot it down.
Oh,
And so Republicans abandoned that effort so that that administration can use it in their campaign talking points that the border is not fixed. But there was a really good border bill that got shot down.
mm,
There was also DACA, which is deferred action for childhood arrivals,
right.
and that has been stopped by the Supreme Court system. So everyone who has received DACA under the Obama administration
Hmm.
is currently in a loop where, as long as they renew their DACA paperwork on time, they will maintain deferred action. Anybody else who has not gotten DACA can no longer get it. So it's
Uh-huh.
not a benefit that new folks
Right.
can get access to.
But there was one about the spouse could stay.
Oh yeah,
There-
I did hear about this too, and and maybe there I didn't hear about the court stopping it.
Mhm.
So there was an administrative change with ICE, and it was non-citizen spouses or undocumented
Right, right.
spouses of U.S. citizens or U.S. military spouses. I think specifically, I did hear that there was a benefit coming to those folks. I'm not sure if it was stopped or
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. I think,
I know.
that part of the playbook of policy is that when the
Yes.
policies come out, that you take any effort you can to stop it. And if you don't want immigrants to have a pathway to citizenship, then they're aggressively fighting that in the court system. But America is a land of immigrants, and America is also a nation of laws, but there's a lack of laws addressing the immigration crisis. And
Mhm.
every couple administrations, there's some sort of like comprehensive relief. It's almost like a band-aid, and it doesn't solve the problem. America has been such an amazing country in that it's been a beacon of inspiration for the
Mhm.
rest of the world to come find refuge here.
Mhm.
But there aren't pathways to immigrate here that are accessible to the
Yeah,
world. It's very limited, and that's
it
why
is.
so many folks end up immigrating here illegally,
Mhm.
and probably without even knowing.
Yes, without, and that's another thing, education, because one of the projects that I've always worked on is getting people to register to vote,
Hmm.
to be educated,
Yeah,
and for us to move them and get them to the polls.
yeah,
It's so difficult, but we're right in the middle of that right now,
yeah.
and so we have different groups going gung ho, um, and I say, whatever party you belong to, do it.
Hmm.
Make sure that your people are registered to vote. You have the right. to vote.
Yeah.
Don't put that aside.
Yeah.
That's an important right that you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I've always been an advocate for that.
Yep. Yep. Folks, have the power to vote and don't, and
Yes.
then to complain about the system, and that's such a upside down situation.
It is. In Hawaii, there's during the election time, no vote, no grumble.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
vote, no grumble.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. I think I've been encouraging folks to go vote. I can't vote. If I could, I would.
Yeah.
Even though I grew up here. But go vote, and if you're not sure who to vote for the person that won't deport dreamers like myself.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Know who it is that
Yeah.
people have to really study
Yeah.
the people and I'm talking about local politics as well as,
Yeah. Absolutely.
federal.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. Yeah. Any final words of advice you could share with us, Rozita?
Well, the word that I always say is love.
Mhm.
Love yourself, love your neighbor, be able to have dialogue one with the other, and also to always think of the big picture whenever you're having any kind of discussion, not just a small part here, because this small part will affect the big picture. But if you don't see the big picture,
Yeah.
you won't know what to do here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and if you can do everything with love in your heart for the other person, I think we would have a better world to live in.
Yep, I agree. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you
Well,
coming down
thank
to Nevada
you.
Partners and speaking to me on all of the things we got to talk about.
Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed this.
Amazing. Likewise. All right. So